You're going to click on connecting to audio, Donna.
Yep, I was working on it. Good morning.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
I think sometimes, if you accidentally tap or click on something else that puts it on top of Zoom, then you don't see that. So how are you, Donna? How are you, Donna? Hello. Glad you're here. Glad you're here.
Yeah, I'm good. How are
Uh,
you?
yeah, very good. Very good. Slept extra. No, that's good. That's very good. It's helpful. Most helpful. Most helpful.
How many hours of sleep do you normally get?
I don't know, actually, which is rather odd. My sleeping has become a bit peculiar. I go to sleep fairly early, I end up being a long time in bed, 10 or 12 hours, but I don't sleep all of that. So I kind of awake for long periods of time. So I don't know always how much sleep I get. It doesn't seem like enough though. It's very strange. Takes me a long while to get to sleep. Then I kind of sleep a little bit, and I wake up. I've been listening to stories in between, so I don't know. That may, may affect things as well. I don't know. It's just peculiar. So I'll just go with it. What can I do?
From a physical standpoint, do you not is it hard for you to be sitting all day and then laying down, not moving much? No?
No, no, not at all. Well, also, when I'm doing that, I'm really working on my body, on that physical, um, the um, the restructuring or the retensioning of the body, repurposing really, and practicing new ways of being in terms of new ways of feeling, new ways of intending, and that takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of effort. So
Mhm.
it's not just that I'm waiting to sleep. I'm kind of working as well. So
Okay.
that's very consuming for me. Very, very consuming. It's like every spare moment I have, I want to do that because I'm seeing real progress and real change. But it's quite an amazing thing. You just have to keep practicing it, because you kind of keep going back. It's overbending, and then you move a little bit, and you overbend, and then you've moved a little bit. So but little by little, it's starting to change. So it's the
What's
big
it
secret. Sorry, go ahead.
what exactly is changing that you're seeing or feeling?
The physical habits of being. In terms of, for instance, the way we hold ourselves, or at least the way I hold myself, the way my underlying expressions of being in terms of face and posture and stance, uh, the way those default, I'm moving the defaults, and
Excuse me. I gotta
that's
get Riley.
just,
I'll be
just,
right
just,
back.
just
Riley. Riley. Come on. Come on. Lay down. Riley enjoys saying hello to any and all beings that are outside. Birds, people,
brilliant,
leaves,
brilliant.
rustling trees, anything.
He's a
He likes
communal
speaking to
fellow. He's a
them.
communal fellow.
But
Brilliant.
I have guests that are still sleeping, so you have
Oh,
to keep the communal part to a minimum here this morning.
interesting. You said guests plural.
Yeah, Paige and her boyfriend are here.
Right, right, right. Interesting, interesting. Very cool.
Yep.
And is this the same boyfriend from before or different one?
They've been dating for about a year, a little over a year.
Mm.
Yep. So anyway, go ahead with this is intriguing if you don't mind the whole body.
Ah, so so like just now, I was feeling in my jaw a tensionality, which is an expression, which is an intent, which is a purposefulness, which is a way of being, or at least it connects to a different way of being that I wasn't able to do before. And I just have physical connectivity to uh, tensioning, feeling, expressing in that particular manner, which I never had before. I had to essentially invent it, or explore it and feel it. Just you don't know where you're going, so you have to kind of explore the boundaries to, wow, okay, this is a cool way of being, this is a cool way of feeling, this works, this is what I want, this is closer to my intent. And in that, this is where I'm making progress. This is a big deal. Our just ability to deliberately feel differently, in those particular ways, not in an emotional way necessarily, although it does connect emotionally, but this is more of a physical set that rearranges intent. It's quite something. It's quite something. So, that's what I spend most of my time doing when I'm not on the computer. And
I
it's
see.
it's it takes a lot of effort. Even when I'm on the computer, in between moments, I practice that also.
Mm,
Yeah, yeah. And I feel that this is something that, just if you just pay attention to face, is a huge deal. And I was going to say earlier, I feel there's a big secret involved with this that I'm not quite clicking to yet. And I feel at some point when I really figure this out, it will be a lot simpler, or a very simple to implement after the fact, as opposed to, the way I'm doing it now through just trial and error, experimentation, exploration. I don't think this is the most efficient and effective way of doing what I'm doing. But yeah, I haven't figured it out yet, so I keep going until I do.
maybe it'll just
Yes.
happen automatically and you don't really have to do anything. Maybe there's changes going on that we don't see,
Exactly, exactly, and I do feel that's the case. But
right?
there's a methodology or a logic to it that is sort of underneath it all. I'm not quite sure yet what it is, because I'm exploring all the time. It's not that I don't have any examples. I'm figuring it out as I go along. And I
Yeah,
think if one knew where the focal points were, you could just go there directly, immediately, without, having to figure it out. It's
right.
like it's a big
Maybe
maze,
you go there directly when you're ready and it happens automatically even.
right? Or at least if you could have an example to go to. It's like
Maybe.
a maze that, you're figuring out by yourself. If
Mhm.
somebody's already figured it out, it's easy to go through.
Yeah,
I
I
feel
just
so.
maybe feel like it's not a somebody that figures it out. It's, I don't know. Maybe it could just be, sort of one of those divine gifts you're given when you're ready and there's changes going on that we're even not unaware of physically, and it might just happen. That could be a possibility. Who knows? All I
Yeah.
know is I hear what you're saying and I can totally resonate with it. And I recognize major changes going on in my body
Oh,
that I don't really understand at the moment. But I'm
right.
just trusting that I was thinking about this on my walk. There
Excellent.
again, I'm having a phase of many things, many, 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 almost everything that really, from a prior life standpoint in how you process your life, wouldn't fit into that model that quote unquote, you would say at the end, that just doesn't make sense. And it's like that's pretty much how my entire world has been lately.
Mm,
So then I'm like, okay, well, I can create a new model and I can explore and I can try to figure it out and I can try to figure out the methodologies to make it feel more comfortable for myself, or I can just trust that at some point it's going to make sense. And sometimes I feel like for me, I try to analyze and overthink too much, and it's not a thinking game. I'm not in a thinking game anymore. And so letting go of that thinking to make sense of things, I
yeah.
gotta be honest, it's been a bit of a challenge for me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so that's sort of what, so I can kind of relate. It's similar to what you're talking about when you look at the underlying things that we're both doing. It's very similar.
All right, so let's go a little deeper into this. So for me, what this is, in a big way, is the the ability to unhabit, if that makes any sense. I
Yeah,
find that we carry default habits of intent, habits of belief, habits of feeling, habits of perception, habits of self-conception. All of these things are in us, or especially habits of how you feel about the world, your situation, stuff like that, right? They're
right.
deeper habits that aren't conscious because we pick them up through life, and they're just there, and you don't even know they're there, or you've moved on to other habits, but they are still underneath, lying there, having some kind of an influence. It's like kind of you add newer, better programs onto your computer, but you don't delete the old ones. So
Mm,
this changing of the expression, it's very, very much focusing on doing both simultaneously. Taking that old program and transforming it into one that you want. Because if you don't do this, it doesn't matter what you overlay on top. You're still being influenced by what's underneath. It's a very big
yeah.
deal.
I
Very, very
don't
big.
know, for me, that's releasing the old and being very conscious about it. So when
Yeah.
things start to bubble up, immediately being aware of it and just moving. And it feels like it doesn't really matter what the moving is, just like you're for me, I'm just trying to have it be, yes, a thought of there's that old programming coming through. And then what I want to do is almost like curl up in a little ball, and I have to push through that and literally move, dance, or and then think to myself, okay, I'm making space that no longer serves me. And almost go like through a kind of a, for lack of a better word, like a ritual kind of thing where it's mind and my body and my spirit just sort of all working together, because it feels like if you, at this point anyway, um, the awareness is so keen. So that's not it. And I don't experience like many, I really don't, a lot in my body as far as ailments or pains or things like that. So I'm like, I'm blessed in that and I'm grateful. And I'm also like, okay, why is that? I
Mm.
mean, physically, I don't feel my age at all, and so, like, it's kinda a good thing to understand why that is, and so I'm looking back at, yes, I think thoughts have a part of it because we get up in the morning and we say, "Hello, world," and who's ready to create a great day today? And, I wake up and I feel younger and more exuberant and childlike than I did the day before. Thank you, universe. And so that's all part of kind of a ritual type of thing, right? And we're
Mm.
using words and those are coming from thoughts. But then it's also like going outside and it's movement. And it's while you're thinking those things, you're walking or I'm skipping with a dog or I'm dancing outside or I'm feeling the grass and and that seems to like intensify. And then like the spirit part of being connected is like the awe. When you look at the tree and for some, it looks dead because it's wintertime and it's all branches. But like you're seeing the beauty of nature and how, and you're like recognizing without that tree, what it does to the air that you breathe. And without the air, you wouldn't even be here. And then all of a sudden, that dead looking brown tree with no leaves because it's winter is just absolutely beautiful. So that feels like the spirit part comes in. And when the mind and the body and the spirit, like everyone always talks about, but I really, I want to get what that means for me, because
Mm.
maybe it means something for me different than it means for other people. What does a mind body spirit connection mean? And so like I'm really trying to combine all those elements. For one, for me, I call it making space for the new. And I don't know if that means you have to delete the old programs or what exactly happens inside, but I feel like I need to make space somehow. And then I'm hopeful, and this is the part that hasn't really happened, that's challenging in that I don't have replacement. I'm not seeing the fruitions of these efforts yet. So, the new programming is there, but it's like it needs space to be downloaded or whatever terminology you want to, and then replaced with new, and I've not seen a whole lot of the replacement with new. So while you're making space, it almost feels a little uneasy for me. It's like, I get that I have to do this at every level, mind, body, and spirit, in a way that works for me. And I know I have to make space for replacement and the new. But until you're like fully integrated and all of that, mind, body, and spirit is like ready for this new way of being, that's where the void, like we talk about, hits. So that's
Yeah.
why when I was in the void and we were talking about that, I'm like, well, if there's a process to make that phase of this awakening or enlightenment or whatever the label you place on this process and progress is, if there's a way to make that easier so that void doesn't bring on anxiety and doesn't bring on those flutters in your heart and
Yes.
your stomach so much, and
Yes.
it can be, maybe a little lighter, then that would be a cool thing to
Yeah.
help know so that you can share that with other people. So that's part of what I've been doing with the application too. And it's really been an interesting time in that a lot of the old programming, for it to be removed or for the new to have space or for it to be deleted in your files, it has to be brought up still. And,
Mm.
a lot of times you think, well, I'm over that. And you are intellectually, but are you in your body, mind, and soul? In every aspect that you need to be, are you done with that? So, does that kind of make sense?
Yes, yes. I do feel that we need to take off the brakes. And the brakes are those subtle old programs that sit in the body. Have you felt really, really determined and empowered and felt that what you wanted combined? So, determined, empowered, and desiring of something that you really, really wanted, and you felt that you were entitled to it. You felt that you could get it, and you made it happen, and it happened.
Oh, I've been like that my whole life. I feel very much so. And when I'm in that state, I feel like that's what I'm trying to understand the process. How did I get there? Because that's what we're talking about.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I
It,
think the empowerment part comes from the body
exactly.
element. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. This is what I'm talking about in the physical rearranging of the
Right.
self. It is to
uh,
get the body to feel what we want and what we intend,
Right.
to marry the two, to deliberately put all of the elements. When we get to that state in the past, that's happened and things just kind of fell into place and happened. It is to be able to get there deliberately. To me, this is where I'm heading with what I am doing. It is truly for me to be able to implement my intent as personal power directly, because I know when I'm in that state where I really feel like it, whatever it is, and I've got that physicality that aligns with my intent and my want, it happens. Whatever it is, it happens.
Right.
Yeah. So it is to feel the power and not to feel the resistances to power and the habitual doubts that there, and not just doubts but anything that affects this ability to implement many things that can affect it, just stuff we've picked up in society, and just all sorts of nonsense, but it's
Well,
about
and
the
the thing
liberation,
is, like,
really.
I want to be very hesitant on identifying what those other things are because so many
Yeah,
times
same.
I've seen that people are like, oh, well, it's
Exactly.
self-doubt, or,
Exactly.
oh,
Exactly.
it's
Exactly.
not, they don't respect themselves, or, oh,
Ex-
they're not confident. No, it's not. It's not that.
exactly.
I don't think that's always the case. I think the integration of mind, body, and the spirit is not taking place. And yes,
Ah,
those factors can influence an individual person's
yeah,
progress in this,
yeah.
but I don't think it's like that at all. It's too easy to just slap a label on it and say that's why they're not doing it.
Right, right. Exactly. Now, this is for me the process and why I so love this, because this is what I figured out long time ago. I need to replace, but I do not want to know specifically what it is that I'm replacing. I know it's what I don't want. I know it's crappiness of nonsense, whatever. I don't want to know specifically. I just identify, do I want to feel this way? No. Replace it, transform it, reconfigure it, repurpose it into a feeling I do want. That's it. End of story. Remove, replace, remove, replace, remove, replace. That's it.
Right.
If I'm like got a whatever, if you can watch your resting face. You get all involved in something, and the moment you come out of it, pay attention to how your face is feeling, attitude, mood wise, intent
Hmm.
wise, before you shift to where you want to be. Right. So you
Oh,
catching
it
that
has to be
moment.
before. Yeah.
Right. You're catching that moment of unawareness. And if you practice, you'll notice it quite a lot. You say, oh, why am I feeling this way? I didn't choose this. I don't want this. Where does all this nonsense come from? That's what we want to replace as a default. That's what I work on all day long, whatever time and opportunity I get. It is to
Yeah.
replace that default, the resting face, as they would to call it, because those are just habits. That's all they are. And we have to just train. The problem is we don't really always know what to replace it with.
Right.
That's the thing, because we've never seen examples of
Nope.
moreness. All we have is examples of what we've seen, and it's okay. But when it comes to this type of empowerment, this type of claiming of yourself, this type of deliberation, I've never seen. Yeah. So hey, I'll figure it out for myself. I have to invent it, create it. But it's not that difficult, really. You just have to play hot and cold, really.
No, I don't think you invented. I think it's a gift that's given to you when you're ready.
Maybe, but either way, I'm just saying the process for me is to play hot and cold. You kind of feel something in your body. Do I want this? More, less? Okay, and there you go. And just simply through playing hot and cold, you figure out what you
Yep.
want,
See,
more or
that
less.
works. Where I have challenging times is like when other people are involved. Like I can do that with situations, but then when things come up where there's, like behaviors of other people, they're
Yeah,
acting out and they're figuring themselves out and they're doing their soul lessons. And you even see it and you know that this is something that they have to do. It's a soul lesson and they're figuring their stuff out and they're going through their process. But you're involved in that behavior and that action. They're like figuring it out, but you're also involved in that. And it's like in an area that's bringing up things that still need to be released and you're still making space. And then other times it's a place where it helps you determine that that is fully released and you're now working on replacement. But that situation brings you back to release and you're past release in that area. So then it's sort of a conflict on, how at times situations with other people and their behaviors and their actions, if they keep triggering up places and then you're past that, it feels like, what do you do in those situations? And an example is like, I was walking the dog today and I recognized in that one of my main focuses, like when you determine what's really important to me, hang on a second, it's kind of scattered.
yes, 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 yes. No problem. Take your time.
So when I started this process a long, long, long time ago, and then when I really fully committed to making it a priority several years ago, well, many years ago, really, um, I really was trying to figure out myself. And in doing that, one of the mechanisms I used was, well, what's important to me and what brings me joy and what brings me passion.
Okay.
And the reason I focused on that wasn't because I wanted to experience more joy and passion, but I wanted to be able to have source God, this is the thoughts back then, God flow through me to bring others joy
Mm.
and passion in a way that I felt. So it was like flowing through me, and I would experience it. And I would even say, yes, I am being a little selfish. And, you know, I used to apologize for that because I know I'm supposed to be selfless, but it would feel good to have more joy and passion. But also,
Ah,
what
no.
my true heart is to be that so that others would experience it that. So what brings me joy and passion? And I found out that what really brings me joy and passion is to have relationships with people that I care about, relationships with other people, the sharing and the collaboration and the laughter and the fun. When it all boiled down to, well, enjoying, and is it serving? Is it giving to charities? Is it going overseas? I never honestly, everyone else was, in the church and things like that. Oh, this is what we should be doing, and this brings us joy, and we're doing God's work. And I always had such conflict because I thought to myself, oh crap, I don't feel this way. I don't feel like going to Nicaragua with this group is my joy, is my passion. What is wrong with me? I should feel like this. I'm not doing well. So I'm like, okay, I just got to figure out me. Why do I not feel like other people? And it's like no matter where you are, I'm in Westlake, Ohio right now. And yes, there's places in the world that really need help, and there's individual people that really need help. And if that's another person's passion and that's what they're called to do by a higher source than themselves, and it's truly from a heartfelt, I need to go and do something about this, I totally respect that. But I felt as though, and I still continue to feel many times, that the calling is not there. The calling from
Mm,
source to do things is missing. And the intent is good, but if they really step back, they would find out it was self-serving. And I
mm,
really, really at that time said to myself, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be fooling myself that I'm doing all this stuff, trying to find myself. And really, all I'm doing is pretending that I'm finding myself, and I'm not really finding myself. And I remember thinking, this is probably not going to be the most pleasant experience because I can already see I've been very selfish in my actions and behaviors, up to this point. And I can really see that this religious foundation of mine has not served the greater good, and it's not served me well.
mm.
And some really deep, deep, like core things that were
There you
me
go. There you go.
needed to be really dug
There
up
you go.
and
There
replaced with
you go.
different core things. And that was not going to be an easy road. And so, I get that I am a divine being. I don't only get that, I feel that in every ounce of my body. And I have an intent to figure out what that means for me, because I feel like nobody else can tell me what that means for me to say I am a divine being and embody that. And there's part of me that feels like if I am truly divine and I have everything I need, I'm struggling with, well, what is left? And I found out through this process that it just feels like for me, there's a knowing that we are here to share relationships. That's really the crux of my passion and my joy. It's not an individual journey. What matters to me is people and the sharing of that, and the sharing of joy, and the sharing of passion. And so, how do I know that I have everything I need, that I am everything that I will ever need, and I don't have to look for another to be anything? Well, that happened a long time ago, because when there's a recognition that you're looking for other people to bring you happiness, that's not going to happen. That's the basic realization. But when you dig deeper and you say, okay, if you're everything that you need and you're happy and you're content and you feel joy, and what is left? There still was something missing. There was self, there was spirit. That was, that self element, that connection to that. And having to spend so much time focusing on myself to connect back to that self element was hard, because it felt very, again, it felt very selfish. It felt very, it's all about me kind of thing. And it was kind of, it kind of had to be for me. I don't know if it's like that for other people, but
Exactly. It had to be. So you had to change your deep belief about selfishness.
right.
Yeah.
And then now it's like you have, your body's changing, the way you feel is changing, your heart is changing. And like you had said, there is no real replacement. And so I'm very much um, challenged in finding a perspective about relationships. And for me, that was my main thing. That was, it remains that if this was an individual endeavor, and if we were just here as an experiment for ourselves and that was it, then okay, I'm sure a lot of people could get there. But I don't think that's what it is. I think it goes deeper. I think it goes beyond just a me element. And once you've found yourself in a place where you are content and happy and at peace, and you recognize that a relationship with other people can be different than you once experienced those relationships,
Yeah.
you want that, but you've not been in it. So how do you create it? It's like you had just said, we don't have the replacement piece, and it's hard to like, and like,
Yeah.
it's like at work, or even like with the kids. I want to have a relationship with Amanda, and I'm this new way of being. And I approach my relationship with Amanda as, I'm a person and I have a lot to offer, and I feel like I'm kind and compassionate and fun, and I laugh a lot, and I bring a lot of light most of the time, not always, most of the time. And I would
But,
have a lot to offer in that relationship, right?
but are you
And
fully
so,
content with yourself?
yeah, I
You
feel like I
fully
am.
enjoy with yourself?
Yeah, I do.
No, then you don't need to offer anything. That's all you need to be.
But the thing is, for me, I don't feel as though, if I'm truly content with myself, I have a knowing inside that there's a next phase to this, that we are, yeah, you can sit back and say that's all you need to be, but I also need to find like my passion, which is taking this way of being around my inner circle and be this new way of being, but in relationships with people that are going to be different because I'm different.
Mm.
And I'm finding that I don't know if this new way of being kind of radiates an energy field that is foreign to others. And anytime anything's foreign, there's hesitation to be around it. Or because I was walking today and I wasn't, for a minute, I was feeling self pity, but then I was like, no, it's different than self pity. It's just a really wanting to understand this. I have attempted, like with Mary Beth, to introduce people to the program, go out to lunch, get to know her. She seems like a really nice person. And I fail epically. I'm not connecting in this new way of being to people. I don't have the ability to effectively like um to effectively generate isn't the right word, but cultivate, nurture relationships in this new state of being. And I've always struggled with this. I was that person that, and it's just the truth. And I know, words matter and all that, but for whatever reason, that deep connection with other people, and when I see other people in their relationships, they're able to like meet somebody new and then they talk and then they invite them to lunch and then they get to know them a little better and then they'll do things socially and then it'll build and they'll have this relationship eventually. I've never been a person that's been able to effectively have that step by step relationship building effective process. And now that I have this new way of being, and it feels as though part of my calling is to be myself and just to be present, but also to be able to use this new state of being in relationships. And I don't have a template because one, I never was good at it, even in my old way of being. And number two, now I have this new way of being, and it's even more so because it seems to repel people away even more than my old state of being. Does that make sense at all?
Yes, yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I do feel like it's if we look at like being, we like being with trees, but the tree doesn't necessarily do anything specifically. So I feel this is a powerful state of being to strive for, where you have that I am what I am, and because I'm enjoying myself, I'm content, I'm happy, I'm exuding positivity, whatever. I simply create that shade, as it were, or that comfort, that zone, which enables anybody to be with me and enjoy being with me.
Mm.
Furthermore, I feel a big, big point that comes up for me time and ago in all of what you shared is we have to absolutely, in order to shift, to grow, to really, really change, we have to replace certain beliefs that we have about how the world works. And this I find is very, very critical. Now, these aren't underlying, beliefs that have accumulated. Some of them are, yes, but some of them are also beliefs that we now currently actually subscribe to. We believe we can only do this because of this. We can believe things work this way because of that. We need this to be in place before this can happen. This is all absolutely not so, as far as I'm concerned. Not necessarily, but in a very general way. Most of our beliefs about how the world works, just not all that valid.
Well, I get that, and I understand what you're saying. However, experiencing it it's a challenge
Hey,
because
that exactly
like being
experiencing it. Yes, this
I
is.
can I
Sorry,
am
Donna, to interrupt you a second. That physical changing that I'm doing, it is to change the experience of changing the rules of how the world works, so that I feel that the world works differently and can work in the way that I want it to work.
okay, and you gonna be an island amongst yourself because
No, 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 no. I know you keep thinking this is sort of an ideal or an objective of mine. No, that precisely makes me able to be community if I choose. If I wanted to be an island, if I needed to be an island, easy. It enables me to be absolutely appropriate to whatever the circumstance. I'm looking at maximum adaptability, the ability to implement what I would like to implement as I see fit, whether this is appropriateness or simply personal predilection, doesn't matter. The ability to implement. And that's the key to overcome that resistance. I can't get what I want because I believe the world works in this way. If I can't change the world, to change my own idea of how the world works. It's a radical notion which I've had from experience. I've realized that I can make the world change just because if I feel in the right way. So I'm changing the other side of the equation. Instead of waiting for the world to change, I'm changing how I perceive the world, interact the world, expect the world to behave, and my ability to implement and change. So I'm looking at actual practical empowerment So yeah, so this is absolutely a way to have community and have really community in a most appropriate way, or relationships. Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I personally feel that I'm pretty rubbish at relationships. And I don't mean, personal, physical relationships, any kind of relationship, even interacting with people on, in Zoom and all that. I feel there's so much better that I could do. I'll work on that because I'm changing my internal way of being, my thoughts, my feelings, those default habits. There's so much that can be done there, but it's all just a matter of holding a particular type of a feeling, an attitude, a determination, a stance, a perspective, a perception to hold it physically. This for me is the key to have that physicality be connected to the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, psychological. Very important. It's a missing piece. I think the body takes a little bit longer to implement these things. If we don't feel it, it doesn't really matter all that much.
Well, I've known that for years, and that's why when I've shared with you, like, my shower meditations and movement and
Exactly.
jazzercise and yeah,
Exactly. Exactly. Now, here's the key though. I have many abilities that I can do, but I feel that sometimes, or most of the time, or in general, they're an overlay. And the
right,
underlying things that are underneath it, they corrupt those. They pull
right.
me out of it.
Me
And that's
too.
what I'm working on. I'm working on those underlying things. Those are those not quite so obvious, or sometimes unaware or unconscious, subconscious things. uh, they're not really subconscious. They're more like legacy programs lying around that just eat up bandwidth and energy
Well,
and
I
mess things
think
up.
the underlying concepts, though, sometimes are things I still want in my reality. I
Mm,
think that, there's this new way of being, and sometimes I still want some of those underlying things. I just want to bring them into my new way of being, and they can't be there. And
mm,
there's a conflict.
mm. Yeah. And sometimes I think that conflict is purely confidence and also entitlement. We are very, very, very cautious, if not even afraid of being and feeling entitled. We think this is arrogance and ego and self importance and overestimation and all sorts of nonsense. And yes, it can be. But also, that, when you look at it from the universe's perspective, are you entitled to more? Yes, of
Oh.
course. But we don't feel this. See? So, this to me is to make this appropriate balance, because I don't have much that I really am logically entitled to, because I have this deep resistance to entitlement and irrational resistance. It was rational at some point to avoid the negatives of entitlement. But like anything, these are tools to be used appropriately. So, this for me is a particular challenge to overcome. Same thing with confidence. I don't want to be arrogant. I don't want to be a bully, but you also need to have confidence. I truly feel that I could be in any relationship with anybody. There's no reason not to, right? It's simply a matter of both entitlement and confidence.
Well,
And
here's
and
what
and I could, develop it into a situation where they would also want to be in. If I had all of my abilities and mindsets and attitudes completely appropriately and in command of all of them, absolutely anytime. So this is just one example of what I'm trying to say here. This is really about shifting into a whole other way of being, where we can truly do what we want, because we've learned impeccability, but now we need to learn how to implement what we want with impeccability.
in this new way of being I'm experiencing, you have love for yourself and you have this like peace that comes over you that things in the past that you've equated that you quote unquote need are no longer there. And so you take relationships, and there was this whole thing about I'm a mom and my kids need me as a mom. And now I'm recognizing that is a misbelief. And I can see all these years that I've held that misbelief very tightly. So in my relationship with my kids, in this new way of being, you love everyone the same. So you just be and you make yourself available. And if your kids want to interact with you or not, they will or they will not. And then this new way of being is that you would just remain content and confident with yourself. And if they chose not to spend time with you, then that would be like, okay, I love everyone the same, and that's okay. If you want to be with me, that's fine. But there's a part of me that's like, no, that's not fine. I gave birth to that child and I want to have a relationship with that child. And it brings me a pain in my like my heart. So that's the old programming saying you want to bring your relationship of child parent into this new community, and they don't even know what those words are. And you're not even the parent anymore. So why are you wanting to bring an old program into the new computer? You're going to bring a virus into the computer and it's not going to work. And you're aware of all of that, but you're not quite sure how to just remain in a state of being where you love everybody. And that means freedom. If they choose not to spend time with you, then
Interesting. And
so
then,
that's what I'm talking about. Those are my challenges of late.
all right. So what are the beliefs that inhibit these you getting that you want?
Well, they're not beliefs, they're actions and behaviors of the other side of the equations.
Ah, okay. So you need to influence them then, in other words.
I don't really have a desire to do that.
But that's going to be the end result here. If they don't come by this, okay, influence, but okay, influence is a strong word. Influence implies some kind of force, But what if we could share in such a way that they voluntarily change their minds?
Yeah.
See?
Those are the things I'm trying to learn to do.
Right. So it's a strategy, really, is the key bottom line. Yeah.
Right. It's always a strategy. And it's
Exactly.
hard to create a strategy in a new battle because you've not been there before. So you don't really, one, you don't have personal experience on how to create the strategy. And two, you've never observed anybody else in it to be able to pull from their strategy to create your own. So, and that's what we're doing. And that's the state that we're in, this whole mind body connection and having it be so strong and empowered that I don't know, I'm just trusting that from a universal standpoint, staying connected to who I really am and just being in that state will bring me insights that I don't have any way of learning through books or logical, and I can pretty easily do that because that has happened my entire life. There's knowledge that comes, I have no idea where it comes from, and so I'm just trusting that this too will just be another situation where that knowing comes, and I'll hear it and I'll learn it and I'll integrate it and I'll become it eventually.
Go.
But just it's just the challenges of the in between, and you're not quite there. And
Yeah.
so when I'm not quite there, instead of influencing the other, my default is to um well, in my mind it feels as though I'm here and I'll always be here, and I'm continuing to be in this state of being, which is enough. And I don't really need to have that relationship with a person's that doesn't want to be in a relationship with this new state of being because I really don't need them. Honestly, from an old standpoint of how I used to look at things,
Yeah. Yeah.
you are enough. but you want to share, which is it's a totally different way of being and looking at relationships. It's huge for me. I used to look at relationships as what I could get out of them,
Yeah.
and that there's nothing about that I resonate with anymore. I don't
Yeah.
want anything
Very cool. Yeah.
from somebody in a relationship. I don't need anything. So
Exactly.
it's a matter of choice for
And
me of wanting to
collaboration.
share. Right. And so I'm here and I'm saying it's a choice. And I'm saying, if you want to share a relationship and time and space and experiences with me, I'm here. And when they choose not to, it just feels natural and where I'm at right now to free them to do whatever soul exploring they need to do. And if at some point we share experiences, we do. And I can say this and I can know it and I can be it.
But some part of you doesn't believe it.
No, it's not.
No?
Some part of me doesn't believe
Feel
it.
it?
Mm,
I'm listening.
I'm trying to feel it in my body.
Ah,
Um, hmm, this particular part hmm, of this progress and this new way of being in my body brings, like right now, what I'm feeling is tension in the front of my head,
mm,
tremendous tension in the front of my head, and fluttering in my heart and tears in my eyes.
wow. Wow. Huh. Huh. Huh.
So I then tried to figure out for me why this situation, this aspect of this new way of being is continually bringing this. And it all revolves around the shift of, you become enough for yourself,
Mm.
and it moves from intellectual knowing that you're enough to actually being enough.
To feeling it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, to feeling it and being it. And then I don't know. I just think there's something underneath here that's like in that becoming it, it's stirring something up inside that feels, obviously I would equate some of this to like the labeling of I'm experiencing like loss or grief almost.
Mm.
Like, the severe tension in the front of my head,
Wow.
it's like, ugh.
We, we are losing something. You're losing your old self, your old habits, the old familiarity, the old comfort, the old coziness.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I've said this before and I'll say it again. I feel like that's
Mm.
our battle between our old self and our new self. It's not between evil and
Yep.
bad
Yep.
and
Yep. because habits, by definition, seek to maintain themselves.
No.
It is their intent. Furthermore, the bureaucrats say, this has been working. Why do you want to change it? It's keeping you alive. The bureaucrat's function is not to be sure that you are happy. Their mandate is to keep you alive, not happy.
Right.
If they think that you being happy is going to risk your survival, tough luck. Survival first, happiness second.
So I think to switch to you know, a resolution on this, that my approach has been the integration of mind, body, and soul. And when this stuff comes up, to do those types of rituals to sort of integrate it and whatever it is inside going on, a belief, bureaucrat, well, wiring in the brain. I can't, I don't, I don't have the space to understand it all. And it's become very clear through um, just, messages within myself that I'm wasting time and energy trying to understand the inner workings of it. I just need to focus on doing the mind, body, and spirit integration. And that does involve, the thoughts and movement. For me, meditation and yoga and jazzercise. For others, qigong, drawing, whatever. And people that are offering those types of things, and going back to what you were talking about yesterday, they have to realize that people don't know, they don't carry the same levels of awareness. Like they may be drawn to Fraka and her drawing, and that may work really well. And they have no idea they're evolving and growing and what's going on inside. They might just like drawing,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
exactly. Yeah.
And then some others may be fully aware that they're retraining and rewiring the brain, and they may be neuroscience majors and can tell you all about it and may join her group. And there's everybody in between. And sometimes they're going to try her stuff out and be like, well, this just isn't my thing. And that's okay. That's what we're
Wow.
supposed to be doing.
Oh, yeah.
We're supposed to be trying all these different things to find
Good.
out, how
Work.
do we integrate this new way of being?
Why? Why?
And what works for me isn't going to work for you or anybody else. And if
No,
these coaches are taking it personal, are not getting the bigger picture
yeah,
of things,
I agree. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Oh,
they
wise
should
one.
be like, yay, this person came, and even if it was for 5 minutes, they were exposed. And who knows, 10 years from now, they may remember and it's going to come back up. And it just doesn't even matter.
Yep.
We have to
I
we
agree.
have to figure this out, and it's going to be different for different people, and it's going to be different time commitments. And
Yep.
like, I know for me, sometimes I'm fully immersed in one thing, and then my body will be saying, okay, you need to, and I have to listen to that. Like, I laid off of the body work for quite a while because my emotions were at a frazzled point, and I had to listen to that. And then the other times my emotions are like stabilized, and I'm like, okay, now I can work on integrating all three aspects and getting this thing going again. Anyway, so
That's
I
interesting.
wanted to ask yesterday
Absolutely.
with Bina and your conversation. I wish Bina was here so I could ask her her part, but I'll do that another time. But as far as the what she was saying about the commitment to way of impeccability,
Mhm.
are you experiencing that with other people? Was there any of that that was directed towards me?
No,
Was there
absolutely not. That's
specific
what Bina
situ?
was making great pains to say. Bina, it's not personal to you, Donna. It's nothing to do with you. Um, what point exactly? I know none of the points she made was directed at you. So
Um,
that I know for sure. because
Yeah,
you very clear
that's
to
fine. I
yeah.
just, sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I feel like this is
Everything
I
is
I
personal.
feel like there's angelic beings that are sent to you or something almost that help you on this path because we're all in it together. That's really all we're here to do is learn and grow and expand. And I honestly feel like in situations in my life, there's individual beings. I won't even say them, they're people because they feel different to me. And I find that these people that feel different cannot tell me stuff directly. Almost, like when people say your guardian angel or whatever, they can't impose anything on you and you have to ask. But I feel that makes sort of sense. And I
Wow.
actually experienced that. And it's like, a really heavy dose of nothing is coming directly to me and hasn't for years and years and years. It's all this indirect stuff.
Huh?
Um, and with
It has to be
specifics with,
that way, Donna.
individual people, they can't come right out and say stuff. So
Wow.
they sort of imply, or they'll use another person as an example or what, I don't know. So I didn't
Wow.
know if that was the case, but having said all that, um,
What was the comment that Bina made in detail? I
it
don't.
well, it was just her whole um topic. For me, my takeaway was lack of commitment and how people start and they don't follow through, and the coach's feelings in those situations and how that's going to be addressed, and also the reality that in this moment, from a financial standpoint, where we are in the world, we have to have um, we have to have financial means to share what we're learning, if we're called to do that, with other people. And 9 times out of 10, that sharing requires financial resources to do it on a bigger level,
Hmm.
if that's what you're called to do. I
Hmm.
mean, that was just the reality. And even that, I just maybe feel like there's a possibility that all that shifting too. And I have a comfort level, and I always have, and others don't understand it, but it goes back to like the jazzercise.
Hmm.
Don't have to be, this is just an illustration of my point. I don't have to be on that stage to
Wow.
have God's universe, source, love, and
Wow.
joy
Wow.
and light flow through this physical body to uplift other people. I don't have to be on that stage, and I don't feel called to do it.
Hmm.
And yet it's interesting because I get called up there all the time now. A variety of the instructors when I go to class, and it's so cool. They're letting other people on the stage too, which I don't know why, but just excites me so much.
It's
They'll like do
collaboration.
it.
That's why. No.
What?
Collaboration.
Exactly. And it makes me so happy. And like there's this one instructor and she's so beautiful and she has so much light, and like she'll do a song and I can't help it, and people, they make fun of me, but oh well. I like do this squeal thing when I get excited and jazzercise, like
Brilliant.
woohoo, I love this song. and
Brilliant.
then
Brilliant.
I and then they're like, oh Donna, is this one of your favorites? And I'm like, yes, this is a good one. And they're like, oh, come on up. I'm like, okay.
Oh, good, Donna. Oh, that makes me so happy, Donna. I can't tell you how happy that makes me.
Yeah, it's fun.
Wow, wow, wow. Cool,
And
cool,
it's
cool.
fun not because it's not fun because I'm on the stage and everybody's looking at little me and me. It's just fun to see the other people you get to stand up there and see their smiling faces, you get to see their body moving, you get to see like the energy exchanges that are going on, just the bigger picture of stuff, and you're looking out on it all and you're thinking, yay, thank you, God. I got to take your energy and be up here and just like hopefully it's flowing out there and they're flowing it back. And it's a whole different perspective being on the stage than being in the crowd. So anyway, that was just an illustration. And following your heart on what you're called to do, because I don't think this learning process and our roles as we go through this is, I don't think it's always going to be that traditional leadership, quote unquote, that we think it is. The
Exactly.
CEOs and the CFOs and the
Exactly.
leaders. And I think it's going to be the quiet people and the
Exactly. You know, that's my point. Changing our idea of how the world works, at least according to us. I feel this is absolutely essential. We're inhibited and restricted because we believe that this should be this way, the world works this way, and that stuff. It really inhibits us tremendously. And I think there's a lot of surprises in store for us. Like you just said, it doesn't work the way we think it does.
no. And I think with relationships, like you were saying, well, what if you didn't have, I don't feel like, okay. Such an hard area for me to articulate properly.
All right, take your time.
You were describing a world where like marriage wasn't a part of it, and your partnerships or your companion, like you would live in a house, but there would be other people. It equates in my mind to a God love, where you love everybody the same and you don't have necessarily an intimate one person partnership. That does not align.
Expectations. No
Pardon?
obligation. And there are no expectations and no expectations, obligations.
Okay. That does not align with what I want. I want this ability to create a new world. And I can see in the jazzercise illustration of my part in that. I don't have to be up in front of the stage. And now I'm called up on the stage. I can be in the class. I can be the class manager and welcome people into the community and into the room. And all that is flowing really well. But to be in something that a person loves that person and that person and that person, and you have this different relationship structure, I still want to be the person for one person and then love everybody else. But I have a knowing that that's possible, and that maybe just maybe the person and you from a divine standpoint are meant to be together and have a mission, that you're going to complement each other on a mission that you might even share jointly. Or it may be you have a mission and they have a mission, and then you spend time together. Now, that doesn't look to me anymore, nor does it feel or resonate with traditional marriage in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
Nor do I feel as though I could date in the dating world in a traditional manner in any way, shape, or form. But when it comes to this other creation, it's like you be you, I be me, but we complement, we share, we collaborate. I'm your special me. And other people don't hold that same space for you that I do. So it's sort of like a marriage substitute, but there's still that one monogamous, committed, and that's what I resonate with. And I don't feel a calling to let that go. I feel the knowing with that, like I did with eventually, I don't need to be on top of that stage to do jazzercise and do my calling as it relates to jazzercise. It's the same knowing to your very core and being. And when I feel like that, like you're saying, empowered and mind and body and spirit and everything's in line and you're empowered with this knowing, you just know it's coming from a source bigger than you. And it doesn't have anything to do with a belief. It's totally different. It feels different. I can feel my beliefs and I experience my knowing. So
So here's the thing, though. What you want, specifically you, Donna, to get it, it doesn't mean that you have to change the world. You can just create the exception to give you what you want. Right? Just because you want a specific type of relationship doesn't mean that everybody has to have it. They can do whatever they do. That's them. You got no problem with what they doing. You just want this exception for you, and there's no reason why you can't get it. None whatsoever.
Yeah,
You got to find a person who feels the same way. Simple.
exactly.
That's not that
And
hard. It's
no,
not that
it's
hard.
not. So I just am freeing everybody that doesn't feel that way and making space for trusting that the universe will bring it. And I don't have to look
Ending it.
for it. It'll be
Exactly.
brought to me.
Exactly. Exactly. Life is easy, in other words. In
It's
the
not
meantime,
easy.
in the meantime, you make every effort to prepare, right? I think
Well,
this is
that's,
probably your biggest inhibition, if you ask me, my personal opinion, is that you don't want to mess it up. So you want to be sure that you're ready. But that'd be my opinion. Again, I very seldom do this, give personal perspective. That would be my kind of guest perspective. That, the reason that you don't have it yet is because you have a sort of a protective overriding program that says, look, I want this, and these are the conditions, and I don't want to mess it up as one of those conditions. Therefore, I need to be ready and feel that I'm ready and be in appropriate space. Might not be very conscious, but I suspect it's underlying there underneath. Again, totally my opinion. Just from what you've shared about your past and just how you are and all of this. Yeah,
oh, the challenge, if that's the underlying, is, I mean, you're never really, you don't reach a
correct,
total.
correct.
So at what point am I mind, body, and spirit?
When you feel enough,
Right.
that's That's when. Yes, there's always more, but when you
Right.
feel enough, when you feel that I have enough, that I know that I can absolutely make this work, and I'm not just make it work, but I'm not going to mess it up. It's both of those together. Yeah.
But I will mess it up. I mean, that's just part of the process of learning and growing. I'm not going to be perfect. There'll be things that I mess
Well,
up.
there's a big difference between not being perfect and having, a little bit glitches and ups and downs to messing it up. I mean, messing it up as in ruining it where the relationship now, falls apart and that's it. That's what I mean by messing it up.
Oh,
Not, not,
yeah.
not, not, not little glitches. No, that's like,
Those little glitches, maybe that's the thing though. Those little glitches in the past when not
correct.
communicated, and that those little glitches built up and
That's exactly it.
imploded.
Exactly. So then you messed it up. See? Okay, just it didn't do, it wasn't one thing that messed it up, but the things accumulated and through that they messed it up. So this is something that is obviously something that needs to be dealt with. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
So that's,
ability to, if they do come, to remedy and rectify them or not to have them come in the first place. Yeah. But it's combination likely. Yeah, to have that the greater fluidity and tolerance and awareness and deliberateness. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, probably. But I just feel my calling is to be kind of a, I don't know, like just be myself, and in my small inner circle, my biggest calling is just to be myself. And
I
I
agree,
don't
Donna.
feel,
I agree. I love you as you are, warts and all.
I just, yeah, I got lots of words. I don't feel called to
Really,
be on the stage
really.
or manage a big portfolio or
I don't really think you have any warts, Donna. Really, I don't.
I do.
I don't feel that.
I'm fully aware of my words. But anyway, so that's what I've, it's been going on in my world, and yours is sounds similar.
Yeah,
Some of
but
the
again,
things.
are warts unattractive?
What's that?
Are warts unattractive necessarily?
Well, I guess it depends on your perception of them, but
I mean, when you're drawing a cool witch picture, you always put the wart on the nose, no? They add to the joy of the picture, don't they?
you're just magical how you view the world, I must say.
But
You are something else.
I agree, Donna. And truly, that's the thing. Perspective shifting is a magic wand.
It
When we
is.
can develop this ability to see things, that's how we can prevent those little things from adding up. Because we can perspective shift in the moment and not have it be a problem, not have it be a big deal. So, exactly. And we need to perspective shift on ourselves too. If I see my warts as beautiful, Cindy Crawford, right, with the mole.
Oh yeah, right. So how would you perspective shift like Amanda does my
Oh, and
Amanda
Sissy
doesn't want to.
Spacek. Don't forget Sissy Spacek with the hair lip. Since we're talking about things, physical stuff,
Yeah,
perception something. See my point, Donna? It depends how you relate to it. This is the magic of cueing. Beauty is not just in the eye of the beholder, but it is in the cue, the perception of the holder, not the beholder.
right. I agree.
A nice,
Totally.
nice nuanced shift for one there, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, my challenges are like in certain situations I can't seem to I need let me put it more positively. It would be very beneficial if I had a program of options for perspective shifting. Like you input the data. Daughter doesn't want to spend time. Things I've tried, the way I've looked at it in the past. Can I input all these elements and data elements, and then you come up with 4 or 5 other more positive and productive perspectives I can look at it from? And can I do that instantly? I've called 5 times and she's declined my offer 5 times. Okay, I need my, wait, let me get this application out. And you can shift it right then and not get immersed in the default perspectives.
And this
This
is
they
Amanda you're
call
talking about now?
hmm?
This is Amanda you're talking about?
Yeah, it's
Because I'm
generally
assuming that
pretty
page is there. Now, as a love of a mother, when do you love so much that you're able to set your children free to fly on
right,
their own?
right.
Sometimes I think this is what the universe is saying, you have to love so much that you can set them free.
Well, I pretty much have done that with 3 people, so
And look, Sam and Paige coming back, no?
yeah.
I mean, you have good relationships with them, yes?
Well, good is such a relative term, but I have a
Better. Okay,
relationship.
okay. You have better. And you have a relationship with them. There was a time when it seemed like you didn't really, no?
Well, always with Paige,
Improving.
but not so much with Sam.
Ah, right. But it's improving, no? Is it improving, Donna?
Yeah,
There you go. You got to give your kids time to become themselves,
right. No,
free from your
I
orbit. And you're a very powerful person. So this is the most kind and generous thing you can do is say, go be yourselves outside of my influence and orbit. Because no matter how much I may not want to influence you, simply being in my presence is going to be influential. Can't avoid that, Donna.
yeah,
Until they have sufficient independence of being and strength of character and they are their own people, then only can they actually be in your presence
right.
without being, inadvertently influenced. And you don't want to be doing this to them. You want them to be developing their own selves, right? You're
I
just a
I
powerful person. This is just one of the consequences of being a powerful person who knows who they are, knows what they want, knows what's real for them. It's very cool.
yeah, I pretty much have done that.
Right.
Exactly what you're saying. And
I mean,
yep,
they're pretty young still, right? Are they formed yet as people?
I don't only they could answer that. I would guess based on what I do know that there's probably some things that they need to fully
Lot.
integrate and establish more
Yes.
deeply.
Exactly. Exactly. They are still forming. to where they have, look, we're always still forming, but at
Right.
least where we're forming to a point where I have some solidity of knowing who I am.
Right.
I don't think you
Exactly.
feel that they're in the space. And probably my guess would be, even though Amanda's the oldest, she least of all.
Right. That is
Sam,
true.
peculiarly, he's the most and yet the most inappropriate at the same time. So,
Right.
so
That's a
Sam
good,
really,
yeah.
yeah, and unfortunately, this is a bubble that at some point is either going to pop or it's going to keep smacking him in the head, and like it does Brian. Brian is also very settled in who he is and who he thinks he is. It doesn't really work for him, but hey, because they are so adamant about it, they get locked into it. But again, it's you just have to be you and trust and understand the process. So yeah, it's just a moment where patience and tolerance and forbearance absolutely is required, but it will create the timing of that there's no doubt. Yeah.
That's exactly, you said what I said on my walk an hour ago, almost to the identical words. And I asked the universe for assistance with my forbearance and my strength. Yeah.
Why? Why?
Yeah.
Why?
So,
It's really cool, Donna. It's really cool. Plus, the more you give them space, the more you entice them.
well,
Yes.
I've not really looked at it like that. I just feel as though the more I give them space, if it's meant to be, the more likely that it'll
Yeah, yeah.
happen
Right,
when it's
right,
supposed to
right,
happen.
right. So I was I
If
was
it's
throwing
supposed to
I was
be.
I was throwing out a little bone there. Sometimes we have to be a little bit strategic with ourselves, and we need to choose to believe, because the alternatives aren't all that fun. So yes, choose to believe that the more you give them space, the more you'll entice them. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, it may or may not be 100% true, but who cares? In the meantime, it's a very convenient thing because you need to do it. So there you go. Yeah,
I just find it interesting
you
that
live with
for
it.
me, well, yeah, I just find it interesting for me that right now I'm having to give a lot of people space. And in that giving space, the the way it's manifesting in my body feels like grief. The
Oh,
yeah. So you let go and you allow them freedom, and you're knowing, and your spirit side knows that they're doing their soul work, and intellectually your mind knows, but somehow the body part, in allowing them their freedom and giving them space and sort of walking away from the relationship temporarily or permanently or whatever it might end up being, that giving space feels like you're walking away. And really, like intellectually, I know, and spiritually, I know I'm not walking away. I'm walking towards something, and they are too. So all that's in place, all that knowing and stuff, it's the body. And what
exactly,
happens in the body when that happens is
exactly,
it feels like grief. It
exactly.
brings,
Because the body's freaking primitive and it's kind of behind. So we have to educate the body. It's just behind the curve, and it needs to be because this is the bureaucrats. The body is focused a part of you that's focused on survival.
right.
The other parts of you likely, they continue to survive no matter what happens to the body. The poor body saying, yeah, bye. You see?
Right. Well, on my
So,
walk, I felt like when I was thinking about this, at first, the initial reaction, and it lasted 10 seconds, was, oh, woe is me. I have no friends. I had to let go of this person yesterday. I have to let go of these people. Um, I'm lonely. I'm pitiful. And then I almost laughed. It was like, oh my gosh, that narrative is so funny. I'm
right.
like, okay, enough of that stuff. And then I switched into, what is this really about? And how am I feeling it? And I felt like I recognized it almost like withdrawal symptoms of when I stopped drinking my coffee. I got withdrawal symptoms of being addicted to coffee, and that pressure in your head. And you felt like these mood fluctuations and this like grief that comes over
Ah.
you. It's like withdraw from something you're addicted to. So that's how
And
it,
I think this is the greater lesson. We are potentially addicted to friendships
right,
and, to love and all of this stuff. And I think the bigger, higher self says to you, your God self says, if you really want to be free, yes, you can have friendships and love, but it needs to be voluntary, not
right,
addictive. And this
right,
is the point I've sort of been making all along, that it's not that I want to necessarily not be in a relationship. I want to have the ability to choose it one way or the other, even Stevens.
right,
I don't want to be addicted to it. I'm already
right.
addicted to food, and
I don't want to be addicted to anything.
precisely, precisely. Me neither. Me neither. Me neither. And I'm very happy to say that when it comes to, like sexuality or sex or whatever, I'm not addicted to that anymore. I was for a long time, not anymore. So that's at least one thing that I've succeeded in not
Well,
being addicted to.
but for me, if you define addiction, I think it's like anything.
It's my choice. That's what I
It
define it as.
is. You just want to, you
Right.
can engage
Right.
in anything. Like I can engage in a cup of coffee and really
Exactly.
enjoy it, but my
Ex-
body doesn't need it. I'm not
Precisely.
desiring it.
Precisely.
It's not
Precisely.
impacting.
Precisely.
The same with relationships. You
Exactly.
can
Now,
have a
people,
partner and a companion,
right,
but
right.
the difference is you're choosing it. Your body
Exactly,
doesn't,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. Wanting and needing is two different things. Enjoying and needing, two different things.
right,
Yeah. I can enjoy and need it.
right,
Like somebody who's addicted to coffee, they enjoy it, but they also need to have it.
right,
I want to be able to enjoy without need, and that's what I've
right,
achieved with sex. I can enjoy it, but no, don't need it. Very cool.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very interesting.
That's not an easy task.
It is not. It is not. Exactly. It is not. It is not. It's not an
Yeah.
easy thing, but it's very empowering thing to really have that. Very cool. Very cool when we do get there. It's very cool. Very
Well, part of it for me is almost like, okay, this is important. I don't know why. Part of it started with the mind and thoughts having to have words for it and then to speak it. Even if it didn't happen yet, I had to speak it first. And, sometimes my inner bureaucrats, like you would say, they have to know and feel it. But for me, it was like I had to speak it, even if it wasn't reality yet. And then I had to let go and not understand it, which was the opposite of what I thought it would be. I didn't have to understand every detail. I didn't have to intellectually process it. I just had to speak it. And then I had to feel it in my heart as something that would come to fruition or had come to fruition. And then I had to move my body to like almost like create a dance for it. Like, okay, this is my dance of um, I don't know, building the city. I had to say, the city of love is going to be built, and I'd have to envision it in my mind and see it in great detail. I didn't have to understand where the money was going to come from or how it was going to be built or if I was going to be involved in it. And then I almost had to do a city of love dance. And like when I was thinking of the city and I was visualizing it, my body had to be moving in a dance or a jazzercise or even just, just little movements, but just like it had to like be felt at like every bone of your body had to feel the city of love. I had to create this special dance just for the city. And when I do those kinds of things over and over, they happen. And what I was getting bogged down with were I felt as though I couldn't speak it if it didn't happen because that was lying. And my inner bureaucrats would fight against that because it really wasn't true. And then I had to flip that and say, no, you say it like it's real. Just pretend like you're creating a play or a movie or something and say it with conviction. The city of love is going to be built.
Yes,
And
to feel
then,
it in your body. This
right.
is the ability
Well, I
that
had to
I'm
say
working
it
on
first.
daily.
I had
Yeah,
to say it.
yeah,
I had to say it. And then I had to feel it. And then I had to move my body so my body would take it all in. That was my process. That's been my process. And all along the way I thought my process was going to be was much different than that. And I had to figure out that I didn't have to necessarily intellectually understand or know, or I didn't have to like know how rewiring of my brain worked or how the signals connect to the, and I was getting bogged down with details I didn't have to worry about.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm trying to go for me personally, in all this refiguring of the body. It's like I'm going directly to the source code of the computer, right? Directly without going through
Yeah.
intermediate stages. I'm just reprogramming directly. Yeah.
Well, you can do that because you've done a whole lifetime of you're ready to do that. You're ready to go straight to the main source of your code and recode that. I
I
don't
think
know that
everybody
that
else
would,
can do it. I just feel that we don't, it's like, yeah, I'm figuring out something that's kind of new. I really feel that once we sort of know what it is we're doing, it will be very simple to do. So I don't really have the ability to fully communicate what it is that I'm doing just yet.
I know, right? It
But
is
that will
hard to
come.
communicate
That
it.
will come. That will come. That will come. That will come.
For me, the best way I can communicate it is I'm creating a special dance for like each major, like core foundational thing that makes me me, like makes me me. And then once I have the core and the foundation in that integrated, like in the me, then it almost like it sprouts into this universal all by itself. Like I don't create the universal. I just prepare the me. And then for me, it feels like the universal is like almost like the best way I can put it is source or God says, okay, you've done enough clearing, you've done enough rewiring, you've done enough perspective shifting, and now you've provided this space for this universal, and that's where the new way of being and the new way of living actually starts to be embodied and experienced. I don't know. That's the best I can do at this moment in time.
Interesting. Interesting. I mean, to me, it's just a big act of creativity that we have to create new things out of the unknown. And the only way I can do that really is basically to create, just explore and put together, plus or minus, figure it out, invent it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm trying to make sense of why the universe is bringing me um, pieces of the city so strongly, too. Like I'm trying to understand from a perspective standpoint. Because I
Well,
remember when I
assuming
first,
that the universe has some intent, it might just be that you have this. Brilliant. Aniela's joining us. That it's coming to you because you have this intent. Yes?
maybe.